Welcome to Vintage Vehicle X-Ray. Why the Ford Pinto sold so well at first begins with a truth many people have forgotten. Before the lawsuits, before the headlines, and before the name became a warning in business schools, the Pinto looked like exactly the sort of car America was ready to buy. It was small, without looking flimsy. It was inexpensive, without looking ashamed of itself. It was modern, tidy, easy to park, and easy to understand. For buyers standing in a Ford showroom at the start of the 1970s, that combination felt timely and reassuring. The Pinto did not arrive as a joke, it arrived as an answer. And when a car arrives at the right moment, with the right promise, people respond quickly. That is what happened here. The Pinto sold well at first because it seemed to offer a simple solution to a changing American road. That made the car important from the very beginning. Ford introduced the Pinto on the 11th of September 1970 as a 1971 model, and the company marketed it as the little carefree car and also as the little long-distance car. Those phrases tell you a great deal. Ford wanted the Pinto to feel easy, sensible, and ready for everyday life. It was the company's first true North American subcompact, created to answer growing pressure from imports and to give Ford a more serious foothold in a part of the market that could no longer be ignored. This was not a side experiment. It was a major corporate move. And because it was launched with confidence, priced aggressively, and sold through a huge dealer network, the Pinto immediately had advantages many imported rivals could not match. People were central to that early success. Young couples saw a new car they could actually afford. Students and first-time buyers liked the idea of something fresh and modern that did not carry the size or cost of a larger sedan. Commuters liked the easy dimensions. Ford salesmen had something new to point toward when customers asked about all those smaller foreign cars gathering attention. Factory workers in Edison, Milpitas, and St. Thomas built the Pinto in large numbers because Ford believed the demand was real. And inside the company, Iacocca pushed the project with urgency because he understood where the market was going. The Pinto was not only a machine. It was a response to pressure felt by executives, workers, dealers, and ordinary families all at once. The design helped make that response believable. The Pinto rode on a 94-inch wheelbase and stretched only about 163 inches in length, making it genuinely compact by American standards. But Ford stylists did something clever with those dimensions. They gave the car a long hood, a short rear deck, and a low, tidy roofline that made it look more stylish than a purely utilitarian box. The side glass was clean, the doors looked neat, and the little fastback sedan had just enough sportiness to keep it from feeling apologetic. This was important. Many buyers will accept modest power and modest size more easily than they will accept a car that looks defeated before it even moves. The Pinto did not look defeated. It looked alert, neat, and ready. The manufacturing story is a large part of why the car sold so quickly. Ford pushed the Pinto from conception to production in only about 25 months, a remarkably short schedule for the time. The company had simple goals that shaped the whole car: keep it under 2,000 pounds and under $2,000. That philosophy touched everything. The Pinto used a conventional and familiar layout, with a front-mounted engine, rear-wheel drive, unibody construction, and simple suspension. Nothing about that formula was exotic. In fact, That was one of its strengths. Buyers could understand it. Mechanics could understand it. Ford could build it quickly and in volume. Before any later controversy darkened the story, the rush to market looked like energy, confidence, and decisiveness. To customers, it looked like Ford had seen the future and reached it before hesitation could get in the way. There was also a historic moment behind the early excitement. The Pinto appeared right in the middle of America's first real domestic subcompact contest. The AMC Gremlin had already arrived, and the Chevrolet Vega was introduced the day before the Pinto. That meant Ford's new little car entered the market under bright lights. It was not filling an empty space. It was stepping into a fresh and highly visible fight. And the Pinto started strongly. It sold more than 100,000 units by January of 1971 and reached more than 352,000 in its first full model year. Those numbers are important because they prove that the Pinto was not merely noticed, it was embraced, at least at first, by a very large number of buyers who believed it fit the moment. In everyday life, the Pinto made good sense. It was small enough to slip into tighter parking spaces and less intimidating for people used to bigger cars. It was light enough to feel lively around town. It was easy to maneuver, and Ford's own sales material spoke proudly of its fuel economy, serviceability, and durability. This was not a sports car, not a luxury car, and not a grand family hauler. It was a practical little machine for people who wanted a cleaner fit with changing times. A commuter could drive it all week. A young family could use it for errands and short trips. A careful buyer could tell himself he was being sensible without feeling that he had surrendered every bit of style. That last point matters more than it may seem. People do not only buy transportation, they buy the feeling that their transportation still reflects them. Inside, the Pinto also helped its case. Ford gave it high-back bucket seats in front, a full rear bench, a clear instrument layout, and an atmosphere that felt more modern than many people expected from an economy car. The early sales information talked about slimline seating, a floor-mounted shifter, and a cockpit that was simple without being bleak. Buyers could also order useful and appealing touches such as air conditioning, a fold-down rear seat, a consolette with an electric clock, and decor groups that added a little more flair. The point was not luxury. The point was completeness. When people opened the door and sat down, Ford wanted them to feel that small did not mean cheap in spirit. It meant efficiently packaged, freshly styled, and better suited to the needs of the time. The specifications supported that feeling in a very straightforward way. The early Pinto offered a 1,600 cubic centimeter four-cylinder as standard and a 2-liter four-cylinder as an option. A 4-speed manual transmission came standard, and the car also offered rack and pinion steering, a detail that helped it feel modern and direct, in an era when not every affordable American car could say the same. These were not glamorous figures or dramatic mechanical claims. That was fine. The Pinto's early success was not built on fantasy horsepower. It was built on the idea that a light, compact Ford with honest engineering could serve ordinary life better than a larger, thirstier, more expensive car. That message was simple, and simple messages often sell well when the timing is right. Comparison helps explain the early appeal even more clearly. Against the Chevrolet Vega, the Pinto could feel more conservative and perhaps more reassuring. Against the AMC Gremlin, it looked tidier and a little less awkward. Against imported small cars from Japan and Europe, It offered something many buyers still valued highly: a domestic badge, familiar dealer support, and a car that felt built around American habits rather than imported expectations. That mattered in smaller towns and suburbs especially. A buyer did not have to wonder where the nearest dealer was or whether his local mechanic would welcome the car with confidence. The Pinto fit into an existing American system of ownership that reduced the fear of buying small at a moment when many people were still adjusting to the idea. The engine story is only one short part of why the Pinto sold well at first. In simple terms, the little four-cylinder engines made the car feel sensible. They did not promise great speed. They promised thrift, lightness, and enough power for daily driving. That was exactly the point. The Pinto's appeal was not that it was thrilling. It was that it made modest motoring feel respectable, manageable, and timely for people whose priorities were changing. Another reason for the early sales strength was that Ford did not leave the Pinto frozen in one form for long. The car first appeared only as a two-door fastback sedan, but in February of 1971, Ford introduced the Runabout hatchback after showing it at the Chicago Auto Show. That mattered more than it may sound today. The Runabout gave the Pinto a more youthful, more flexible image at exactly the right moment. The fold-down rear seat meant owners could carry luggage, boxes, groceries, or the loose cargo of ordinary life more easily than the sedan allowed. Young buyers liked the hatchback look. Practical buyers liked the added usefulness, and Ford liked the fact that the Pinto now seemed less like a single answer and more like a little family of answers. A small car with one body style can feel limited. A small car with a hatchback option suddenly feels adaptable. The Runabout helped the Pinto look more in step with the future, and that helped sales because it widened the audience without changing the basic promise. It also gave Ford a better answer to buyers who wanted economy without surrendering versatility. Here is one fact worth remembering. Henry Ford II himself bought a 1971 Pinto Runabout as one of his personal cars. That detail mattered because it suggested the company was not treating the Pinto as a disposable little side project. Ford wanted the car to be taken seriously, and it encouraged the public to do the same. There is also an emotional truth here. The Ford Pinto sold well at first because, for a brief time, it represented confidence rather than embarrassment. It told buyers that moving to a smaller car did not mean stepping down in dignity. It meant stepping into a new kind of practicality. Some viewers will remember seeing the first Pintos in supermarket lots, at school parking areas, or under dealership lights, and thinking they looked exactly right for the moment. That memory deserves to be taken seriously. Before the controversy, before the anger, and before the reputation hardened, the Pinto was a very understandable success. It was a small Ford launched into a country that was becoming newly ready for a smaller answer. Here at Vintage Vehicle X-Ray, that is exactly what we love to explore. We look back at vintage machines to understand how they were built, how they worked, and why people welcomed them when they were new. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your love of vintage cars, and thank you for helping keep these old stories warm, honest, and alive.